The person living with dementia may not remember the day, but they can enjoy the moment. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to the elders, past, present and emerging. Thank you. Can I ask you girls how you felt when your person got a diagnosis of dementia?
I was more concerned about her safety because she would go walking. She'd go down the club, she'd do her shopping, and she was able to do her own shopping with her own finances and that. But then when that kind of all fell to pieces, we had to be wary, kind of not invade too much. We just had to watch her from afar for a while, just to make sure that we are not treading on her toes, but making sure that she was safe and that I had to make sure she had a roof over her head. So I didn't take over official financial things, but I just said, how about if I help you with your money, then you'll have that much to spend. She was okay with that. Didn't put in power of attorney or anything like that. So she was okay because she said, I get a bit confused.
Did you feel any grief, either of you? For the loss of the person and what was ahead of them?
Yeah, I think my grandfather, Dad's father, he had Alzheimer's, and I remember one of the doctors when he was in hospital said, what day is it, where are you? And he said, oh, I'm at my sister's house, Auntie Noreen, and she had been gone for many years, but that's where his memory was. And he said a certain year, which was not the same year. So, and I know that there were many other family members, first cousins and that also started to progress within having the dementia. So it was like, that was quite interesting to see that it's like a almost very close family dynamic.
What sort of age was your dad?
He was in his 70s, yeah. But my grandfather was quite younger, and also his uncle was having a lot of memory losses.
See, under 50, 55 in the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander community is classed as younger onset.
Yeah.
And it tends to be quite strong at times in families.
Yeah.
Whereas in the non-Indigenous population, it would be under 65 and over 65.
I think too, like that generation ate a lot of meat and a lot of fruit and veggies. So they were quite healthy and they were quite active in their work, like being shearers or whatever their work was. So they were quite healthy and they ate really healthy as well, you know, back in those days. But certainly as he progressed, it was like you feel like they are your heroes, and to see them sort of decline, it really does break your heart. Yeah, and I just felt like, imagine how they must have felt themselves, you know, losing that independence.
And we don't know enough about the brain. No. And we don't know how much they do take in and don't take in. And that's why we always say, don't treat them like children.
No.
Because they're not children, they're adults with a memory problem. And their memories are to the earliest part of their life, not the latter part. But they're the same people inside.
Linda can talk about when she lived with our grandparents, because she lived with them most of the time. And she talks about them all the time. She talks about where we used to live. She talks about what they used to do and stuff. But she just finds it difficult to remember where she put the keys this morning, for instance. And
so it's really good for her to talk because it's happy memories with your grandparents.
Yeah.
So if that's what she, gives her pleasure.
Oh, yeah.
It's fantastic.
She didn't tell you anything about football. She'll row with the uncles, the brothers and nephews about football. always been a footy fan. She has a collector cards and she'll play with those cards. She's done that for a long time anyway.
When he was in the nursing home, they were really good. Like one of my sisters, she had all the photos up there of the children, his mum and dad, and then all the grandchildren and all the great-grandchildren. So there was like a big mural of photos of collage of all of
Lovely.
his family, which he was, when he woke up every day, he can see the photos.
Isn't that
He
lovely?
might not know which, because there were so many grandchildren and great-grandchildren, but he knew they were his, and that was something that was beautiful.
That's it. There's that lovely heart connection, even if they can't remember exactly. Or they call you by somebody else's name because you remind them of their sister, or if it's another generation, or, you know, the granddaughter looks like the wife looked when they were that age, you know, that sort of thing. It's photos are very powerful.
Absolutely. And he was in the nursing home during the COVID, so that was limited family from being able to go in to see him. So, but the nursing home actually set up FaceTime so he can, and then we'd have to ring up and say, like, because he had so many, they'd have to slot in the time, make time for every day for someone to ring up and talk. So,
Isn't that lovely?
yeah. So one thing I was able to do is one of his aunts was still alive in Moree, so I would say, so we'd have 4 different people on there, or might have my daughter from one Kempsey or Lismore, and she was there, and then I'd have his aunt on there so he's had like a 4-way conversation. Or I had some of his best mates here in Armadale, and they would get on there, or he's had nieces, first cousins. So he sort of had like a 4-way FaceTime every day, and so he's talking to his family. So, and they said he picked up really heaps when he'd had that family contact, especially during COVID.
I think it's so important. And COVID, for all it was awful, we've learnt a lot from it, haven't we?
Yeah.
That we can actually do whatever, just differently.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the lessons with dementia, is you learn to do things differently with your person with dementia. And you think laterally quite a lot and think of alternate and sneaky ways to do something sometimes. And we also have to sometimes learn to tell, as one of the consultants in Sydney calls them, therapeutic fibs.
Yes.
Because you want to keep the person as supported and as calm, if you like, and not agitated as possible for their own mental health, but it also helps the carer. So if somebody who, well, your grandmother being passed, some people would say to Linda, she's been dead for 20 years, you know, that didn't happen or whatever. Instead of going into her reality, to her, it's a really recent memory and it's something she loved and meant a lot to her. So it's about embracing her memories and her reminiscence and going into her reality. And I think that's what you do, because you've been doing that for a long time.
She has a photo of our grandfather in a wallet. She's carried him for years.
Isn't that lovely?
And that's one of the best memories that she ever had. She will talk about that all the time. She will talk about, and when the carers take her out for social support, they take her out where we used to live, and she'll tell you, from the time they go out, Jamaica Way and back around, she can tell you everything that they did, where we used to go for a walk and stuff like that. She can tell you lots of stuff about our grandmother and how they lived across the railway line. She'll tell you about that house, and I've got a lot of old photos given to her, so we're going to put them up and say, well, who's this here? Do you know who that is? Old photos that I've picked up in their travels.
One thing that was brought back to mind when you were talking about your sister and your grandparents and how important they were to her, sometimes that reminiscence can have a scary side for the person with generational or institutional trauma. And because in their minds they go back and regress, often with where they're remembering
Yes.
and living, it's something that all carers of all cultures need to be aware of. We don't always know what trauma is in somebody's background because it's been hidden. And things like doll therapy, people say, oh, you shouldn't let adults play with dolls and it's demeaning. But actually, people who are in their 90s, 80s, 90s, whatever now, we don't know if they maybe had a child and had a miscarriage or a stillbirth, or whether they had a baby out of wedlock, and which in those days was frowned upon and was hidden up. And we don't know what traumas that person might have gone through. So holding a doll and just, and I've had it with people with animals. I had these animals that you could pet and they go meow, or meow, or woof, or whatever. And they knew they weren't real. They weren't we weren't pretending these were real animals, but just that act of stroking just calms everything down. It makes you feel more at peace and relaxed. And if people went on respite, we'd let them take the toy with them. And even families would buy them for their own people because they saw just how calming it was. And so there's lots of things that can help calm trauma, but it's being aware that sometimes there's been trauma, and especially in the communities, there's a lot of generational trauma. I think it's important that we touch on that, just to be aware for people you're talking to in the community.
We don't know what others have gone through.
No.
And anything like that, like this little dog, she's such good therapy for Linda. And I think the only thing that was a problem with her was when she was working and things weren't going as well for her.
Yes.
And she talks about that, but she's kind of puts it over there and leaves it. It's done with, I'm out of it, I'm finished. But as in therapy, this little dog is just like, she went and bought, I've got to go back and get dog food. You've got 10 packets. So I've got to get more dog food because Dusty hasn't got enough food. So this is good therapy for this little dog. And going out and visiting us, she comes over to my place and watches football with the boys and fights with them.
It's why so many care homes actually have therapy dogs or cats in them, or people that come in. I've heard of horses going in and ponies and things like that, you know, anything. Another thing that's really good is having a garden. If you've got a garden, here in Armadale, there's a bit of a sensory walk around the Aboriginal cultural and keeping place. There's also, I believe, something at the Arboretum here in town. So many, even small towns, will have a nice sensory walk. And in your garden, planting things like lavender or the person's favourite flowers, to just walk round and smell the roses, as it were, and talk about the memories that brings back. Like my father always had chrysanthemums, and I hate them to this day because they were always full of earwigs. So I don't want a chrysanthemum in my nice smelly garden. I want the lavenders and the rosemaries and mint, things like that.
And music is another
Music's fabulous.
And maybe they might not know the words, but they certainly remember the sound and they'll
But it's amazing.
hum and tap to it, you know.
It's amazing, Val, how even people with quite an advancing dementia can remember the words from their childhood. I had someone who was pretty nonverbal, but I started reading a Banjo Patterson poem, and I will never forget it to this day. It was called Mulga Bill's Bicycle. And this person said it word for word. Couldn't believe it. Or with certain old hymns or songs from their church, they'd sing along. And yet Art's another one. A lot of places now have an art and dementia or art remembering with art type programs where groups of people living with dementia will come and sit in front of a painting and they'll talk about what they see. It's not just about, oh, it's painted with acrylic or it's painted with this or whatever.
I see.
It's more, what do you see when you look at that picture? Now, there's a little man in the middle there. They might look at that and say, I see a sunflower. And then that generates conversation. And it's a really valuable tool and something that you can ask your local art space whether they'd consider doing it. It emanates out of America, but the National Gallery in Canberra organised the training for those programs, and they're fantastic, and we're lucky to have one here.
Yeah, wow.
How did your dad cope with driving and not being able to drive anymore?
Well, it took away his independence, and especially because he was living on his own at that time, but he realised that he was a bit of a liability for him driving, like he could have caused an accident or not knowing that he even maybe hit a car, but he realised other people's safety was at risk if he drove. But it did take away his independence, which means then more services need to be involved for him to go down and do his shopping or the family.
Yes, it's a really hard one. I mean, I think you were lucky with your dad that he had the insight to know it was time to give up. We've had to use therapeutic fibs before with involving the police in chatting to people to say, actually, you don't have a licence and you can't drive. They've been amazing. I think it's sometimes when it's not family saying it, people will take it better. Sometimes doctors will just say, no, that's it. Sometimes they'll ask if you want, you can have an occupational therapy assessment and they cost a lot of money. So therefore, often people will say, okay, I'll hand in my licence. Sometimes it's just because you have a diagnosis doesn't mean you automatically lose your licence. But you do have to report it to your local traffic authority and you probably will be given a restricted licence. Just why some people don't do it, but it can cause problems later on with insurance if you have an accident and things. So. But it's great when people are like your dad.
Yeah, very proud.
Hand it in. You know, sometimes people have had it go to the mechanic or lend it to a grandchild or it's just not working because it's, disabled, it's got a flat battery. You have to sort of look at all sorts of things. What was the most important piece of information or advice you were given after diagnosis?
To look after ourselves as well as looking after sister. But just getting back to therapeutic lie, is that what you said?
Therapeutic fibs, yep.
Therapeutic fib. I did tell a therapeutic fib last week because she will not keep this vital call alarm on. Oh, it hurts my arm. Well, if you don't keep it on, you will have a knock at the door and there'll be the blue boys. Or I'm ringing the doctor. But when he went and seen the doctor, she had it on and she used a walker. He said, oh, you're looking very good with that. Because he's a real gentle doctor. And that you're doing really good with that. I was thinking, good on you, doctor. So that was a therapeutic fib.
Absolutely.
Keep that one in mind, therapeutic fib.
Therapeutic fibs. You're allowed to see them. And that's...
Well, it used to be called a white lie.
Well, exactly. But then you're not... But look, what you're doing is you're keeping them feeling validated as the one of the terms, because you're acknowledging how they're feeling. And it doesn't do any harm. As long as it's not safety involved, it doesn't do harm.
Well, in saying that, what I didn't scream or yell at her. I just said to her, this is what's going to happen, love. If you don't keep that on your wrist, the blue boys are going to come and knock on the door. And don't ring me up then. You ring us up when you need us. So it was kind of like that. So that's a therapeutic fib, isn't it? And she looked at me and I said, well, you know, give it a go. But she got it on this morning. Rang the bus. Yes, we have her on the bus. She has her. She made her go back and get a walker. So
Good.
the girls on the bus, they watched her. They went in with her. Get your walker. You forgot your walker.
And what was your best bit of advice?
I think one is having a lot of patience, like just being patient and understanding through their eyes, because we see them decline, but then we're seeing that they're not feeling the best of themselves. So it's just being patient and just seeing what they think, and how they're looking at things through their eyes. They might just think it's just old age, but it's, it's part of old
And
age.
it's that going back into their reality.
Yeah, so it's just being very patient with them, not sort of talking back to them or making them feel like they weren't
They're not
important.
doing it on purpose.
No.
If they're being awkward or difficult, it's not being done on purpose. It's a place of frustration, of unmet need, of all these things that, and even with people who wander off, they know where they're going. So actually we call it walking more than wandering nowadays, because they know where they're going. Even if they can't. Sundowners is usually something, often mid to late afternoon, when they get very restless, and they usually probably, when you look back, did some particular activity, or the kids came home from school, or they were cooking dinner, or they were folding the laundry. So by giving the person some tasks that are meaningful to them, and making them feel needed, useful, part of the group, it can be really useful.
Yeah. I remember watching a video that you had done before and talked about, so if you're at home and you're cooking, let them be part of that cooking, like maybe peel the veggies or just little simple task, or maybe leaving a light on in the bathroom so when they get up at night time they can see where they actually are going to. So they're probably really great little tips that I remember from the video watching.
And one of the other videos that we're going to be doing, we'll talk a lot about tips and hints like that. But I think the cooking one, so what if the potato's not peeled properly? It doesn't matter. Skin doesn't do anybody any harm. But to sit at the table and peel the veggies and feel you're contributing. One of my clients used to say, we cook together, and he gives her simple tasks that she could do and feel she's still part of that cooking process. Someone else I know can iron. So the accomplishment out of ironing, they might not be able to do a lot of else. They might not be able to do an intricate piece of ironing. Can iron pillowcases or tea towels and things like that. So it's finding that something that makes a person feel valued and useful and still part of the family.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people tend to take over. Instead of increasing the help as it's needed, they go all in,
Oh no, we don't do that with her.
No, I know you don't. I know.
She's got like.
But some people do.
No, said one day, come on, we're going to strip your bed. So we stripped the full bed, tipped the bed over and everything else. And she ran outside. Oh no, you come back and help. This is your bed. You've got to come back and help me with this bed. She had got about 10 blankets on the bed. I said, you come back and help with the bed. And she went like this, and I said, oh, well, okay. But we were going to make it together.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
Yeah.
And bring the clothes in and whatever. But it was funny. She was, no, you
She's
come
got
back.
a mischievous glint in her eye sometimes,
yes.
that woman.
You come back and you can help and you can do a little job. You know, I've seen her walk out, she puts the bins out, she still does that.
The other thing I think that's really important, and I think almost preaching to converted in your community, is including the persons in activities still. Now, if you had a wedding, the whole thing might be just a bit too much, but they could go to the ceremony and a little bit, you know, and cut the cake type thing before maybe going home. Because too much noise, too many people might just be overwhelming. But you find out how you can bring your person into family gatherings. They don't need to stay at home.
Well, we've done that with sister. She's been to, and she likes dancing. She gets up and has a good old dance.
Yeah.
She loves dancing. She loves getting out and talking to people.
That's fantastic.
And we make sure that she goes to anything like that. She'd been out to our property last week when they had a gathering out there. They said she enjoyed it with all the mob sitting out in the bush. How nice can that be?
Oh, beautiful.
And she loved it. She's gone out for the day and maybe at the weekend we may do something with her, you know. She's not burned out because she's starting to socialise again now after a bad fall.
And it's good for you. It stimulates your brain.
It is, and she, you know, my daughters will go and pick her up and take her somewhere or take for a drive or do something with her. And she loves doing it. She loves going up the Arboretum.
Oh, it's beautiful up there.
Takes her up her social support take her up there to the Arboretum. They've taken her, she loves going to Uralla, just to have a little walk around the shops. There's something to see in Uralla. And yeah, just doing something different. We took her to Uralla, Thunderbolt Festival. She loved it, didn't want to come home. We just sat around and yarned. It was really great. We ran into people we knew, and that's where she gets a conversation. She'll talk to these people that we know. So, yeah.
And if she's not able to, or anybody able to keep up with the current conversation, go back to remembering and reminiscence and things of shared past. I mean, my sisters and I do that anyway. You know, we talk about the past a lot because there's lots of good stuff there.
Yeah. Also, another one is, say they're not able to go and attend a wedding. They might be able to FaceTime with the staff and a family member to be able to still watch the wedding on FaceTime or.
And the same with funerals and sorry business. You know, there's always got a phone and a camera that they could maybe join in, you know, make them feel part of it.